From CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Good morning, I'm Jim DeFede and welcome to Facing South Florida. Charlie Crist, who was the Republican governor of Florida from 2007 and 2011 before becoming a Democratic member of Congress from St. Petersburg in 2017, is interested in challenging Ron DeSantis in 2022 to get his old job back. We talk about this and the COVID relief bill proposed by President Biden. But I started by asking him if the Senate should move forward with the impeachment trial of Donald Trump if they won't be able to convict the former president.
You know, if it's an effort in futility, then what's the point? And so if it becomes more and more clear, Jim, that that would be the case, then it's probably not good for the country to do that. I think that, you know, you got to do what's right. And you know, I voted for impeachment because I felt it was the right thing to do. You know, we see this horrible assault on the Capitol on January the 6th. And as a result, 5 people lost their lives. And the incendiary statements that the president made at the rally beforehand, I think are the kind of thing that is impeachable. That's why I voted for it. If it isn't going to happen, I don't know if it's healthy to take the country through that. And I think the new president might feel that way too.
So would you be in favor of canceling the trial in the Senate?
If in fact it turns out that the numbers simply aren't there, then I don't know what the purpose is, unless, you know, new facts could come up. That's always a possibility. You know, I'm a lawyer. I actually used to be attorney general. So, you know, the trial, you know, so to say, can bring up new facts, can have new witnesses, and maybe paint a different or more factual picture of what actually happened. So I think before answering, I'd have to see if maybe some new facts might develop between now and when that ultimate decision and vote would happen.
Do you get the sense, though, that your Republican colleagues are even open to hearing new facts, or are they so beholden to Donald Trump in their view that they've already made up their minds?
You're asking, I think, probably the most important question facing politics today, besides obviously the pandemic and the economy that we're dealing with as a result of that. But, you know, whether or not individuals are going to, you know, vote on what they feel the facts are instead of some sense of loyalty or allegiance to the prior president remains to be seen.
The Biden administration has gotten off by trying to sort of move forward with various proposals. You know, right. The $1.9 trillion plan that they put forward for COVID relief, for support for the states, for a number of different issues, seems to be running into some trouble. Where do you stand in terms of how we best move forward?
I think President Biden has it just right. I couldn't agree with him more. You know, almost $2 trillion more, I think is appropriate and needed. And it's been a while since we've had the opportunity to take another crack at it. I mean, as a member of the House back in May, we in essence voted for that, but the Senate wouldn't take it up, as we know. Well, there's new leadership in the Senate now. And because of that fact, we have an opportunity to do something very good for the people of our country, and they're suffering. And we need to understand that. You know, people are having a hard time making rent, making the mortgage payment, buying food for their families. You know, I've never seen anything quite like this. I mean, I was governor, Jim, as you know, during the Great Recession, which was anything but great. But what we're dealing with now is such a double whammy, economically and health-wise, and it's creating this terrible litany of death that we've never seen before, certainly not in my lifetime.
Well, I want to turn to what's going on in the state in a second, but I want to stay with Congress for a moment. Sure. One of your colleagues has certainly garnered a lot of attention for some controversial positions that she's made before coming into Congress and even since being in Congress. And right. I'm referring to Marjorie Taylor Greene. There was a video that was recently released showing her basically haranguing David Hogg following the Parkland shooting, yelling at him that he was a coward. Does she deserve to remain in Congress? And what should the Republicans do about the problem that they have with Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Well, removal would be appropriate in my humble opinion. And I think that my esteemed colleague Ted Deutsch of South Florida has said something similar to that. I couldn't agree more. And Jim, let me expand on this just for a minute. You know, politics today is not what it was 10 years ago. Or even 5 years ago, perhaps, in terms of the rhetoric, the incendiary conversation, hateful speech, really. And I think we need to come together as a country and we need to treat each other with mutual respect. It's how I was raised here in St. Petersburg by my mom and dad with my three sisters. You know, be kind to people, be decent to people, tell the truth, mind your manners. Mom always would tell us, you know, always say please, and probably more importantly, say thank you. And, you know, we need to get back to that, in my view, those kind of values that respect one another. I'm wearing these yellow wristbands today. What they say is practice the golden rule every day, Jim. Of course, the golden rule is do unto others as you would have done unto you. And if we would all get to the point where we try to comport ourselves in that decent kind of fashion, a lot of these problems would go away. And discussions about, you know, basically stalking a young man who was at Parkland when all that horrible shooting went down. If people would adhere to this, that wouldn't happen. And I pray for that. I mean it.
You were an early harbinger of what happened to many moderate Republicans, in that they felt the Republican Party wasn't a home for them any longer, and left. And you were the Republican governor of Florida, and now are the Democratic member from Congress for the St. Petersburg area. So, you know, what has happened as you look back and as you sort of seen the progression of the Republican Party? What's happened to the Republican Party, and is there any coming back from Donald Trump, in your opinion, for them?
Well, let's hope so. I'm not sure. I think if there is some hope for that, it may be a slow process. It may take some time. But, you know, when you have U.S. senators like Mitt Romney and others that are expressing dissatisfaction, to be kind, about the prior administration and where it's taken the Republican Party, I mean, you know, this is not the Republican Party of Ronald Reagan or George Bush. You know, those guys were tremendously respectful of others, had a great amount of decency about them. And, you know, I started to see this thing slip away really in 2010, 2009. I remember being with President Obama in Fort Myers, Florida, Jim, height or depth, I should say, of the Great Recession. And, you know, ground zero for the mortgage crisis was Florida, and South Florida in particular. And so President Obama asked me if I would join him in his first trip after being elected president to Fort Myers, Florida. And I responded that of course I would. And actually some of my staff at the time that presented that invitation to me said, "Are you sure you want to go?" And I said, "Yeah, why do you say that?" They go, "Well, you know, he's a Democrat." And I said, "He is the president of the United States of America. He is coming here to help us to the tune of about $12 billion to help us keep our teachers on the job, firefighters on the job, law enforcement on the job." I said, "I am absolutely going, and I'll be honored to be there." And I ended up introducing him, and then he hugged me, and that was kind of it. You know, I mean, that almost ended my career as a public servant, and certainly as a Republican one. And it just was something that I couldn't tolerate anymore. Not the way I was raised by my mom and dad. And you know, and I don't know that it was just hugging a Democratic president. Jim, you know this as well as anybody. He was the first Black president too, and part of that, it's hard for me to get out of my heart and my soul, and had a lot to do with me deciding that the Republican Party had left me.
Well, do you believe the Republican Party is racist?
Some in it, sure, I do. But I don't want to paint too broad a brush here. There are many fine Republicans, not only in Florida, but in our country. I mean, for a time after that, my mom and dad were still Republicans, and I love them to death, right? They're Democrats now, I should update you. But at any rate, no, I don't think the whole party is of that ilk.
There has been a lot of speculation that you are interested in running for governor. Is that true? Are you interested in running for governor of the state of Florida as a Democrat?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm focused on, you know, dealing with the COVID crisis, the economic crisis, helping the Biden administration, you know, get on their feet and move well, and, you know, make it so that less people are dying and that more people can be employed in a good way, develop infrastructure. But if you ask me, have some people suggested that I should contemplate potentially running for governor next year? Yes, they have. And so while it doesn't get much of my attention in my brain right now, it is something that I would be open to.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think of the job that Governor Ron DeSantis has been doing?
I'm disappointed. You know, and the best example I can share with you now is the vaccine rollout, or non-rollout, if you will. I mean, it's as if there was no plan in place, and I don't believe that there was. And, you know, it's not as if, Jim, that this was a surprise that the vaccine was coming. I mean, you know, just like when you're Attorney General or Governor of Florida, as I was, and there's a hurricane coming, you know it's coming. And, you know, hopefully it'll turn at the end and not hit anybody and go back out in the Atlantic Ocean. But you got to be prepared. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Well, the worst has hit us. It's the pandemic. And it looked to me like the administration here was ill prepared to handle it and still appears that way. It's appalling to me. People's lives are at stake. Our fellow Floridians are dying. My sister contracted it last week. Her son the week after. Her other son the week after. I mean, all of us know somebody who has had it or who has passed away as a result of it. I mean, this isn't a joke. This isn't funny. This isn't where you know, go to hospitals and say, every hospital come up with their own plan. Are you kidding me? It's a severe lack of leadership, Jim, and it needs to be solved. And Florida deserves better than that.
How do you think you would fare in a primary where you would likely face severe challenges from the left?
Well, I think you just describe yourself as you are in your heart and your soul. You know, I believe in being very cautious and very protective of the taxpayers' dollars. And I know that's important to people across the board, certainly a lot of Republicans, or I wouldn't have been elected a Republican governor in the past. Also, I think it's important to understand that law enforcement is something we have to fight for. I mean, you know, I was the Attorney General of the state, the chief legal officer of Florida for 4 years. Having done that, I have a pretty good grasp of the needs of law enforcement, how important they are, and how they protect us. And so, you know, you just describe yourself as you are. I love the environment. I mean, you know, I had environmental summit in Miami with Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, Robert Kennedy. You know, I love the environment. We need to protect it. If we don't, it hurts us economically because our dependence on the tourist industry. I love law enforcement and making sure that our communities are safe. I fought for teachers as governor before as a Republican. 2 of my 3 sisters were public school teachers right here in Pinellas County. I mean, these are the kind of things that I think Floridians want. And I think they need help getting there. And so that's why I'm opening my brain to the idea a little bit more.
When we come back, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.